Yes everyone, I'm back from Lake Como and I'm back to make more videos as transfer stories have been absolutely mad over these past few days. I had an amazing time in Lake Como. My sister's wedding was absolutely unreal, kind of like a movie in that sense, and Lake Como is such a beautiful destination to visit. So if you ever have that possibility to do that, I recommend you hit it up at least once in your life, because yes, it's the definition of what picturesque means. But my friends, I'll be discussing the big stories today, so I hope you guys enjoy. I hope you guys are happy to see me back. Apologies if you hear background noise today because it's so hot in London that I need to leave my window open. So let's not waste time with the intro and let's get straight into things. Let's start off with the quick report today involving Alfie Gilchrist, because Alfie is attracting a ton of interest from not only championship clubs and some Prem clubs, but most importantly across Europe. Clubs like Ajax are paying attention, but today it has been announced that Cesc Fabregas Como are interested in taking him on loan for the season. And for me, if you're Alfie, this is a simple decision. You simply go to Como to work under Cesc Fabregas, because not only are you going to learn the game from Cesc, as we're seeing from his commentaries during the Euros, this guy has peak football intelligence and he has that connection with the football club, which helps. But most importantly, you learn a different part to defending. You're adding more tools to your game. You're learning more about the tactical aspects, your positioning, the timing, all those intricate defensive details that a lot of players, especially defensive ones, benefit from having some time in Serie A. And most importantly, at this young age, you're living an absolute peak lifestyle. Being in Como, I've just come from there, and I think to yourself, when you look back in your career, you have these fond memories of your initial introduction to the high levels, right? And I think Como could be a great club for him, because I think to myself, let's be realistic, it could be hard for him to cement a first team spot in the team, considering the investment we're constantly pumping into our team. So on the plus side, British talents are being accepted a lot more now in Serie A, and by having some experience in that league, you can set yourself up internationally. You can boost your market appeal across Europe, and for myself, it's a win-win situation. And I think if there was a comparison I'd make, not an identical comparison, but like energy from it, I hope you guys get my sentiment. But I remember when John Terry was a kid first breaking through, under the tutelage of Desailly and Frank Leboeuf, he became a lot more continental. And I think that really helped elevate his whole game to become the legendary defender he became. I'm not saying that Gilchrist will become that guy. I'm just saying that there is some wisdom in seeking pastures in Europe. So that's the first story out the way. And let's discuss the ever developing and accelerating story surrounding our efforts to sign Barcelona's young striker in Marc Guiu. As we are now learning today, we are now in the final stages to sign Marc Guiu from Barcelona. We are prepared to activate his 6 million release clause, which is around 5-point-something million pounds. And we've been in talks with the 18-year-old actually for a lot longer than reports initially suggested, with more talks coming before the end of the season. So it's quite interesting. We've beaten Bayern and Sevilla to this move, and Barca are very missing the opportunity to agree something financially to keep Guiu at the club, but at the same time, they couldn't meet the player's ambitions. Now, Barca's contract offer was still set at around 2 million, and they still believe that you need a bit more time before you could break into the first team. But Guiu is like, listen, I believe in my talents, I believe in myself. He is probably even more emboldened by the fact that many big teams across Europe were chasing him and trying to sign him, and he believes that he will get more game time with us compared to getting game time at Barcelona, with Lewandowski and Victor Roque being ahead of him at the moment. Now, one area in which we absolutely just destroyed Barcelona in was the wages we offered to try and get this deal over the line. We offered triple the amount of money Barca put up to try to get the player to sign a renewal. We are set to pay him 6 million euros a year. That works out to being around £100,000 a week. Now, I'd imagine that there are some incentivized performance-related bonuses tied into this contract, things like goal bonuses, etc. I'd imagine that if he was to activate them on a weekly basis, he'll be earning around 100k, base. But he's set to earn some incredible money at 18 years old. You're not going to turn that down. And it's no surprise that after much deliberation with himself and his family, they decided that moving to us would be the next best step in his career, and with the money that we're putting on the table, I think we're also communicating the fact that, no, we believe in you. We think you're set to be a very big talent here, and you'll get that game time, because reports have mentioned over the past 48 hours that Enzo Maresca also got involved in this deal, held conversations with the player and assured him, you're not someone for Strasbourg or for loans, you are for the first team for next season. So in that sense, we finally signed that profile striker we've been looking to sign. You know, a physical, big, tall, explosive striker that can lead the line, that can hold play up, that is phenomenal aerially as well too. Actually, I don't want to say phenomenal when he's so young, but one of the strong parts of his game is his aerial play, and he is someone that kind of suits our model even more, in the sense that these are the talents we want to sign so they can grow and improve as the years go on. And I do think that he's showing already that he does have a lot of very interesting parts of his game that shows that he could make an impact already. Now, am I expecting him to be like the undisputed second choice striker throughout the season? No. I think it's interesting that we are still reportedly looking at other striker targets, but realistically he is still 18 years old, and you think to yourself, by the time you're 21 years old, you're either hoping to be the first team striker or the more reliable number 2 option in the squad. And with the money he's set to earn, you know, business-wise, financially and career-wise, this is probably the best step for him. Because listen, let's be cynical for a second. Even if it didn't necessarily work out, by the time he potentially, hypothetically, for the sake of this convo, got a move, he would have earned millions and millions, and then you're still having a great career because, you know, big clubs and top divisions will still pay attention to you and try and sign him. So there's no lose-lose in this scenario. Even though we have signed a crap ton of young forwards, you're looking at guys like Dujon Richards, you're looking at players like David Washington be signed for big money, Jimmy J Morgan, who just came back to the club, Datro Fofana, of course, academy guys we already have like McNeely, guys like Tyree George. But realistically, you can kind of see the tier list with the strikers we have. Some are clearly signed to boost the quality of the under 18 and PL2 teams. Some are signed so they can be flipped on. Some are signed so we can assess them because they come for next to nothing. But I think Guiu is on that higher level where he will be a first team striker. He is for that squad, and he will be someone that will get a lot more quality minutes and access to these minutes as well too. After much convincing, it seems like Guiu feels like this is the next step in his career. I'd imagine that he'll feel kind of excited working with the squads. Of course, a lot of Spanish-speaking players here. But continuing this trajectory of becoming Chelsea Club de Football, maybe I need to start learning a few Spanish bars now for the next few years. It feels like I'll be missing out if I'm not doing that. But it's one of those signings where it takes you by surprise, but I like to think I'm going to have some trust and faith in this one, that there is something interesting to this move. There is something that can be worked on, that can be developed in Marc Guiu. I feel like he has the personality already to feel like he can come in and make things happen. I've always kind of liked Spanish strikers too. I do think that because of just the nature in which, you know, Spanish players play football in their country, the philosophy there. Like, I remember being in school and we had like these Spanish exchange students that came through and were just kicking ball in the playground. And like, just how they play the game was different to us. We were like more physical, wanting to like, you know, be more confrontational and be more direct, and they were just a bit like silkier, you know, kind of like ballet dancers a little bit, if you know what I mean. That's what they encourage in their football, and I feel like when a lot of players come from La Liga, it's a pretty seamless transition for them when they play in the Prem, and they don't really tend to get hit by the pace of the league that much because their first touches and their technical aspects in their game are already that high to begin with. And I think the best recent example is Isak's introduction to the Prem, because yeah, he's making it look extremely easy. So I'm going to have even more things to discuss. I'm going to be releasing a player analysis reaction video on Guiu so we can look in his game in greater detail. So my friends, I'm going to leave this with you. Share your thoughts and opinions. How do you feel about this? Are you a bit skeptical? Are you a bit hopeful? Or do you just not really have much feeling towards this? Whatever your opinions are, let us know below. And this moves us on to another big update surrounding continued efforts to sign Jonathan Davids. And these updates are coming today from The Athletic and from Florian Plettenberg. Now, he reports that we are seriously interested in making a move for David alongside clubs like West Ham and a host of other teams. And at the moment, it is extremely likely that David is set to go to the Premier League because that has been a long-term ambition for the player for a very, very long time. Now, he only has 1 year left on his deal, which means that he comes for as little as between 17 to 21 million pounds. There was a time that Lille were hoping to receive around 65 million for Jonathan David. Nothing came from that, and now he's available at a bargain fee, and he is one of the most reliable goal scorers in Europe for the past few years. He's regularly getting 20 plus goals a season. When Lille won Ligue 1 a few seasons back, he was only behind Kylian Mbappe in the scoring charts, and he goes to show that he has this Harry Kane type of talisman effect for his team, where I make the comparison because, with Spurs at the time and obviously Lille, a lot of all they do goes through their strikers. They're the focal points. They're the player they turn towards to save them in games. Look at last season's stats. Jonathan David recorded 19 league goals. The next highest scorer for Lille was Grover with only 6 league goals. So it shows the impact, but it also shows the mentality of Jonathan David, that this is a role that he can relish, that he can rise to, that he can step up, and he can obviously show his qualities and show that he is that difference maker. And I think he's a very interesting player, to be honest with you. I've spoken about him on this channel for a few years, ever since he was at Ghent, because there have been these long-term links now for many years. So we fully scouted this guy up, and then all those times we were watching Lenny Yoro live, you'd imagine we were also looking at Jonathan David at the same time. Now, last season he had a very slow start to life in Ligue 1. I think a lot of that came from the fact that he was a bit disappointed he was still remaining there, and he only scored 2 league goals. We went on like a 9-game scoreless streak, and he didn't score again until like the end of November. But since then, he'd never looked back, and like his scoring form since then, especially in 2024, was off the charts. Scoring some important goals against like Paris Saint-Germain, Brest, Nantes, Rennes, and a host of other teams as well too. What I find interesting about this news is that he doesn't necessarily match that physical profile role. I think Bernal set to sign that in Marc Guiu. He is more of like a receiver style, in behind, quick combination plays, run the channels type of forwards. I think we could benefit from that because he's also played substantial games as a second striker, as a shadow striker. But he can also now lead the line too, so he's quite complete in all those forward duties, even though he's like the central focal points for his teams. Now, I would say one thing that I could see him benefiting playing under Enzo Maresca is the fact that a lot of the goals he scores comes from connecting with crosses. And a lot of times he finds himself regularly at the far post and the near post. He's not just standing there waiting for the ball to come to him. I think sometimes Nico, being so young, has a habit of waiting for the ball to come to him, even though he got better at that as the season went on. But this is like Jonathan David's bread and butter. And you think to yourself, Maresca's systems create a lot of like cutback and crosses on the floor type of opportunities, which I think Jonathan David could potentially relish. He's not someone to back into defenders, he's more someone to withdraw from the play, but he does have some pretty intelligent movement, especially in the channels. I would say maybe one aspect of his game that kind of confuses me is that his carrying could be a bit better. I think with like his quick feet and explosiveness, maybe it's something he doesn't necessarily need. He kind of prefers to just like pass and move, which is still okay. But I think probably the best part of his game is that two-footed finishing. That is a big bonus. It means that he can create more scoring opportunities. He has more technique from a variety of different type of passes or crosses he's about to connect to. And he's also decent aerially as well too. So it's an interesting one. It could be through business here. A lot of times you necessarily have to spend 60 mil on signing a number 2 striker. I mean, how often have clubs benefited from having 2 big strikers competing for a first team spot? It doesn't really tend to work like that. We may feel that if we're going to have Marc Guiu, we still need to have more of an experienced figure alongside a Nicholas Jackson, and then this way maybe it would be Jonathan David and Nico vying for a number 1 spot, with Marc Guiu getting these developmental minutes throughout the season, building him up in the future to potentially take over from either one. Could that be how the club's seeing things and thinking? Time will tell. But my friends, you share your thoughts and opinions. Are you seeing the sense in this move, or are you a bit confused by things because we already have Nkunku that can just fill that role and we could save that money for somewhere else? And we end things with the fantasy story of today involving Atalanta's Ademola Lookman. Now, this comes from an Italian report, and it suggests that us, Liverpool and Man United, are rightfully following one of the best forwards last season in Lookman, who got 17 goals and 10 assists in 45 games, boarding on from his 22-23 season when he recorded like 15 goals and I think 8 assists in 33 games. Since moving to Atalanta, playing better football with a better caliber of player, he's now peaked at the right time, and I think he's showing all the signs of progress and development throughout the years ever since he left Charlton to go to Everton. Now, it's been a mad kind of career journey for him, of course, from going from Charlton to Everton for like £11 million. He showed his promise, but he wasn't consistently ever like that first team star, right? RB Leipzig, though, saw that promise. They signed him for 80 million, but he didn't really announce himself there because I guess they never really needed wingers in their system. Instead, he got loan moves to Fulham and then Leicester City, and I think it was that season he really impressed me, and he clearly impressed Atalanta, who paid a bargain, 9.35 million euros, and since then the guy's got like over 30 goals for them over 2 seasons, and he's been a talisman, and I think it culminated in his hat-trick hero performance against Leverkusen in that Europa League final last season. And for me, I'm happy to see the development, because if you guys know ball, especially in this country, he was like a rising star for Charlton, and it's a reminder that development is not linear. It comes with ups and downs, but the trajectory over a spell of time when you view things from, you can see there was this rise for Ademola. He was one of those players I always felt would always cause issues for a team. He was dangerous. You watch him live, you're paying attention to him because he can beat your man, he can create something from nowhere. But I think now that he's developing at the right time, like hitting his peak, he's showing that that potential to be the game changer, the match winner he always had, is now that thing in his game. And considering the fact that he can play in every single attacking position, has Prem experience, has 2 years left on his existing deal at Atalanta, is he a player that you turn attention towards now? Because he could be someone that could slot in into any 4-position role we need, and is that reliable offensive presence. He earns around like 45,000 euros a week. We could easily triple his salary and he would still be under our wage cap. But then realistically, Atalanta are wanting around 60 to 65 million. And after being burnt with our ambitions to sign Osimhen and OLISE, I just don't believe we have that type of money to spend on players like that. So let's watch things, let's see how things go. But I would not be surprised if Ademola has his final season at Atalanta this summer. So my friends, that's all the big stories and reports today. There should be another video coming out later this evening, so stay tuned for that, my guys and girls and everyone else. And on that note, I'm gonna wrap things up, keep things moving, and I'm gonna see you guys soon. So thank you everyone, and cool.